In every corner of this great land, legends were born. From fearless frontiersmen to forgotten outlaws, from heroic patriots to mysterious pirates, these are the untold stories that shaped America. Welcome to American Legends, where history comes alive. Subscribe and step into the past.
He wasn't a president or a general or a wealthy tycoon. He was a working man, a steel driver with a hammer in his hand and strength that seemed larger than life. His story was sung in rail yards, whispered in coal camps, and passed down for generations. Some say he was a myth, others say he was real. But one truth endures: John Henry became a symbol of the human spirit, fighting against a world that was changing too fast. John Henry's life is wrapped in mystery. Historians believe he was born around the 1840s, possibly in North Carolina or Virginia. He may have been enslaved as a child, growing up in a time when men of his color were bound in chains. After the Civil War ended and slavery was abolished, John Henry, like many freedmen, searched for work in the rapidly industrializing South. He became what was known as a steel driver, a man whose job was to hammer steel spikes into rock, making holes for explosives so tunnels could be blasted through mountains for railroads. It was grueling, dangerous, backbreaking work. But John Henry's strength and endurance made him legendary among his peers. Stories say he stood 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, with arms like iron. His hammer swung with a rhythm that seemed almost superhuman. Yet behind the muscle was more than brute force. John Henry symbolized dignity, a man determined to prove his worth in a world stacked against him. The late 1800s were years of progress, but also fear. The Industrial Revolution was sweeping across America. Machines were replacing human labor everywhere, in farms, factories, and railroads. For men like John Henry, this was terrifying. A new invention had appeared, the steam-powered drill. It could cut through rock faster than any man. Railroad companies, eager to finish their projects quicker and cheaper, began testing these machines in place of human workers. For the steel drivers, it was more than just losing a job. It was losing pride, identity, and purpose. And no one felt that more deeply than John Henry. The legend says it happened during the building of the Big Bend Tunnel in West Virginia, sometime in the early 1870s. The railroad company brought in a steam drill to prove machines could outwork men. The workers grumbled, fearful their days were numbered. But John Henry stepped forward. With a hammer in each hand, he challenged the machine. The contest was set: man versus machine, muscle versus steam, humanity versus progress. The crowd gathered. The steam drill hissed and clanked, spitting smoke and sparks as it bit into the rock. John Henry raised his hammers, his arms moving like pistons, each strike ringing out like thunder in the tunnel. The race was on. Dust filled the air. Sweat poured from his body. Blow after blow, hour after hour, he drove his steel deeper and deeper. At last, when the dust cleared, John Henry had beaten the machine. His hammer had carved farther into the rock than the steam drill ever could. The crowd erupted in cheers. Man had triumphed, if only for a moment. But legends carry a cost. The story says that as John Henry raised his hammer for the final blow, his heart gave out. He collapsed with the hammer still in his hand, his body exhausted, his spirit unbroken. In some versions, he died in the arms of his wife, who had brought him water during the contest. In others, he asked to be buried with his hammer in his hand, near the tracks he helped build. John Henry's victory was bittersweet. He proved that no machine could outmatch the strength and will of a man. But his death also showed the price workers paid in an age that valued speed and profit over human lives. After his death, John Henry became more than a man. he became a legend. His story was sung in ballads and work songs by railroad crews and miners across the country. John Henry was a steel-driving man, Lord, Lord. These songs carried his memory from camp to camp, decade to decade. For African Americans, he became a symbol of resilience and strength in the face of oppression. For laborers everywhere, he embodied dignity and pride in hard work. Folklorists would later track the legend, finding versions of his story across the South, each slightly different, but all sharing the same message. John Henry stood up against impossible odds and gave everything he had. Today, statues and memorials mark the places where people believe he lived and died, from West Virginia to Alabama. Whether he was one man or many men combined into one legend, his story remains one of America's greatest. John Henry's hammer may have fallen silent, but his story still rings out like steel on stone. He was more than muscle. He was courage, sacrifice, and the refusal to be forgotten in the shadow of machines. In every generation, when people feel left behind by progress, John Henry's legend reminds us, sometimes it's not about winning. It's about standing tall, swinging your hammer, and leaving behind an echo that can never die. If you really liked the John Henry's life story and you want us to reveal more hidden American legends, please subscribe the channel, like, follow, and press the bell icon so you can get our new update on time. Until the next video, stay tuned.